Cooperative Extension Service, University of Maryland System presents Using Pesticides Safely, a 6-part training series for registered technicians. Program 1 explains how and why pesticides are regulated by federal, state, and local authorities. You'll learn which federal agency approves pesticides for use and which agency checks for pesticide residue in our food. We'll also show you how state and local authorities regulate pesticides. You'll discover who can legally use a restricted use pesticide and what an MSDS material safety data sheet includes.
Pests. They're a part of life. Quite simply, a pest is an animal or plant form living and feeding where we don't want it. For example, termites are not considered pests when they're living in the woods, consuming dead wood that would otherwise quickly cover the forest floor. But they certainly would be serious pests if they're destroying your home. Likewise, a single weed does little harm, but an invasion of weeds in a field can wipe out a farmer's crop. All chemicals that kill or control pests are called pesticides. Those that kill insects are called insecticides. Those that kill fungi are called fungicides. Those that kill rodents, rodenticides, and so on. Today around the world, pesticides are used each year in agriculture, forests, industry, and homes. These pesticides have increased crop yields and helped us feed more people. They've removed the threat of many diseases carried by pests and made our homes and yards more attractive. But for all the benefits of pesticides, there are also risks to our health and to our environment. It's because of these risks that the pesticides we use are carefully regulated by the government. Before a pesticide product can even be sold, it must be registered with the government. The government specifies how the pesticide can be transported, stored, and applied, and what must be done in case of an accident, such as a spill. Regulations limit the trace amounts of pesticides, called residues, that are allowed on our food, in our drinking water, and in the air we breathe. Regulations even specify how we dispose of the empty pesticide container. Let's look now at just how pesticides are regulated. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA for short, has the major responsibility for regulating pesticides. EPA regulates pesticides under a law called the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, or FIFRA. Under FIFRA, EPA registers specific uses of pesticide products on the basis of both risks and benefits. Can a pesticide do its job without causing unreasonable ill effects on human health or the environment? This balancing of risks and benefits is how EPA determines if a pesticide can be sold. One of the most important requirements of EPA's registration process is the label that must appear on every pesticide product. Each label contains the information necessary to use the pesticide safely and effectively. The pesticide label is so important that the second video in this series is devoted entirely to it. But for now, the important thing to know is that it's illegal to use a pesticide in any way that is different from the instructions on the label. Some pesticides are particularly hazardous and require special handling. EPA may classify some or all of the uses of these pesticides in a special category called restricted use, as opposed to general use pesticides. The label of these products will say restricted use pesticide on the front. These pesticides can be applied only by trained, certified applicators or someone working under their direct supervision. Along with the EPA, the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, is another important agency that regulates pesticides. Things like the amount of pesticide allowed on the food we eat. The FDA inspectors check to make sure that any amount of pesticide left on harvested crops is below the legal limit. EPA sets a maximum allowable amount of pesticide residue, called a tolerance, that is safe on food products. It doesn't happen often, but if an inspector finds food that has pesticide residues greater than the tolerance level, FDA can seize and destroy it. But it's not just federal laws and agencies that regulate your pest control activities. State and local governments also have a role. States have the responsibility of enforcing the federal regulations. They conduct inspections, investigate complaints of pesticide misuse, certify restricted use pesticide applicators, and so on. Many states have additional or stricter regulations than the federal government. For example, some states require that signs be posted to warn the public that pesticides have been applied. Each state's regulations are different, and you must be familiar with yours. Local governments get into the picture too. Some counties and cities have regulations that limit pest control activities. As an example, a town may be designated as a bird sanctuary. Bird control would not be permitted without special permission from the town council. So far, we've talked about the regulations that protect the public and the environment. There are also right-to-know laws to protect you, the applicator, from hazardous substances, including pesticides. These right-to-know laws assure that you have the right to know about the hazards of the pesticides you work with. This means that your employer must provide you with training on the pesticides you work with and make sure you know about their hazards by giving you access to Material Safety Data Sheets, MSDS for short. MSDSs are supplied by the pesticide manufacturer, and they give information about hazardous ingredients, health hazards, spill or leak procedures, and special precautions. The MSDS and the pesticide label have similar information, but the MSDS has more detail on technical data and health effects. Whether regulations are federal, state, or local, ignorance of them is no excuse. It's your responsibility to know and follow all regulations concerning pesticide application. Penalties for failure to do so can be severe. A violation of FIFRA can cost thousands of dollars in fines. Some violations are criminal offenses, and offenders may go to prison. So now you've seen why and how pesticides and your work as a pesticide applicator are regulated. The laws are there to protect all of us in our environment. After watching this program, you should be able to answer a few key questions. The written answers to the questions are included in the video program package. If you can't answer correctly, review the program. Ready? Here goes. 1. What federal agency has the major responsibility for regulating pesticides? 2. Who can legally use a restricted use pesticide? 3. What agency checks on the amount of pesticide residue in our food? 4. Can state and local governments have additional regulations on pesticides? 5. What is an MSDS and what is its purpose?